from the great state of Texas, you are now listening to Skip the Noise podcast, a Rounded Edge Media production. Thank you so much for joining us and by us for tonight's program. It's going to be a little bit different. The lineup has changed with the absence of Mexican Nostradamus. And if you follow us on Instagram, you'll know he's got some family situations to take care of, but he will be back shortly. And at that time, we'll go into details of what's going on there. I'll let him explain all that. But we do have Rick, aka the Brown Python, on the program. Of course, myself, Benjamin James. And if I won't get mad if you call me Binky from here forth. So just let that be on the record. But we do, like I said, no Mexican Nostradamus. We were very excited. We've got a couple of guests on the program tonight that we are very excited to get into some of these topics and get their viewpoints on those. First and foremost, we have Doc, who he hosts the Lampvicious podcast. And I will let you, sir, kind of explain what you do and your show and the organizations that you work with.
Okay, great. As you can see, I'm live from Las Vegas. See in the background. But, my name is Patrick. Yeah, my name is Patrick Doc Francis, and I am the one of the co-hosts and founders of the Lampvicious podcast, also known as the Podcast with a Purpose. So on our show, it is derived from our nonprofit, which discusses things that's going on in the community, such as financial literacy, mental health awareness, and physical fitness. So if you're into anything like that in the community, if you're doing something in the community, we're looking for people to get on the show. We have it every night, Tuesday at 7:15. We've been doing it since July of last year. And we pretty much had a show every Tuesday, every week, except for the Christmas holidays. So we've been rolling with that.
Absolutely. And then also on the program, Miss Shazi, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hey, everyone. Yes. So I go by Shazi. I also have my own streaming show that I do every now and then. It was pretty consistent at first, but then I started working in retail. So my schedule has made that not be as consistent, but it's called Shazi's World Live. You can find it on YouTube or Instagram. I'm also a blogger, fashion and lifestyle blogger here in Houston. And I'm an ex-engineer going through a career change into interior design. So I've just got and I'm just passionate about a great many different things. So I'm just super excited to be on the show. And thank you so much for thinking of having me on here tonight.
Oh yeah, no, thank you guys. The pleasure is all ours. Rick, what, the topic right now, the first and foremost there's a couple things, but there's some ramifications of a direction it's going in our country. So with the voter restrictions, Georgia, Texas, Rick, where do you want to kick it off and get into what's going on with that?
Of course. Yes, of course. So one thing that's been going on in the news lately is the Georgia, they call it voter restrictions. It's just the voter reform that they have in Georgia. One thing that we do here at Skip the Noise is we skip the noise of the media, the narrative that the media tries to push and so forth. And honestly, it's voter reform. I'm more bothered by the way that the corporations have reacted to this. Corporations that have nothing to do with public policy, like Delta, Coca-Cola, and now the MLB, who's decided to move their game out of Atlanta and into Denver. Just the entire story is a complete, pardon my friends, a shit show with respect to what's been happening and the circus around it. Some of the things that are in this law, they're not restrictive at all, I believe. What's been going on is, since COVID happened, they instituted the mail-in balloting and absentee balloting. And one of the things that this law does is it actually solidifies that. Of course, with some restrictions, with some actual rules. I think the last time the last election was implemented, it was done kind of haphazardly, mail-in balloting and so forth. And it presented a lot of problems, a lot of speculation during the election. And I think what this does is it allows for mail-in balloting, but it gives it rules now. It's more structured. It's not put together right away. So I'm not sure it's restrictions. I think, people read into the law, especially conservatives, they may not be too happy about it, but that's just the way it is. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. What's that?
I mean, just a question. Do you think with the climate, though, that it does, I mean, the timing of it, you can see why the media, whether it's, I mean, conservatives will say, oh, they're painting a picture, they're creating a narrative. But I mean, you have to admit that the timing of this does seem like it is restrictive. It is the more, in other words, why not back end it and try to support all these new ways to voting as opposed to cutting them? And I don't know, that's just my thoughts, but I'd like to hear what.
Yeah, of course. Well,
no. Yeah, I want to kind of turn it over to our guests too to see what's y'all's thoughts on these.
Of course,
these the legislation. Yeah, Rick's going to talk over the entire show, and Haga, we've got guests on the program. Let's let them speak.
Hey, that's cool. No, I appreciate the introduction. Like, I wanted to hear your part first because,
of course,
I think both Doc and I, we kind of lean a little bit more liberal, and to me, I mean, I know this has come down to a Republican, conservative versus liberal Democrat type of thing when it comes to the voting thing. But really also as an African-American female, I just see some issues with some of the things that they're trying to do. I actually can stand for, trying to make sure absentee ballots are legit and mail-in ballots are legit. I'm okay. I think that's, I think we should. I still don't think any type of number of incorrect absentee ballots would have changed the results of the presidential election at all. But I can see maybe wanting to make sure that we got people voting who are actually voting. My problem starts when they start doing things like you can't give water and food to people standing in line for a long time, or in Texas for this election here, the Republican Party here made a big freaking deal out of mobile drive-through voting. And to me, the drive-through voting is no different than if I was to stand in line and go inside and vote versus if I stay in my car in line and vote. They were really trying to shut down all the drive-through voting. And it just also seemed that things like that, maybe we shouldn't be voting in RVs, but I just don't understand why drive-through voting is such a big deal. And it just really does seem like it's restricting in the communities where there might be less access to get to a place to vote, or they can't set up ballot boxes and stuff because, a lot of poor people may not have cars or something to get to the one place in their state or county that allows people to vote. So why not allow them to set up voting places? So those are where my issues kind of kick in.
I actually voted drive-through voting.
Me too.
Yeah, I did. Doc, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that we have to sit back and look at the intent, and Benjamin mentioned the timing and why these particular places. I think if the communication was clear and concise as to the reason why these laws and is changing or being upgraded or even just evolving, we need to know why now, what's the issue, and once again, why are you not supporting the way it is now and just making sure that is ran better, so I think a lot of it has to do with the intent, and I don't think it was communicated very clearly.
And I can see, so I heard what was it, I saw a little piece where the governor of Georgia, Kemp, was saying, he was defending all the points and saying, well, we got to keep the perimeter around the thing. And I get so, but once again, back to that timing, it's just okay, so there was this big uproar about voter fraud and all these things. And yes, you do need to secure the vote. That is important. I'm not downplaying that. But given that there's been things in place historically, gerrymandering, you want to make, if there's any sort of pushback to making it easier for every single citizen that is eligible to vote, that's a problem. And that's what it feels like, especially on the back end of the cries for voter fraud and they stole the election and all this. I just don't think it's I don't know. It just smells of us against them, a partisan battle, an FU. It's not done to genuinely support the election process. It's done. It's throwing crap across the other side of the room. That's just how I see it.
But honestly, where the Trump campaign won as far as the media goes, and convincing people that the election would have been stolen or there was some sort of fraud going on, is with the mail-in balloting. Mail-in balloting was instituted so quickly, and it feels like it originally wasn't thought out. And if it was thought out, that idea wasn't conveyed to people. So I think that this law allows for more structured mail-in balloting versus a previous law before COVID that didn't exist. Mail-in balloting was non-existent in Georgia law, but now it is. But now they require an ID to drop off your ballot. And that's also not something that has a lot of people in uproar. Which, by the way, the whole ID argument, I think it just falls on its face. I mean, who doesn't have an ID? There are some communities out there that may not have an ID, but they also allow for exceptions. The last 4 digits of your Social Security would be fine, or a student ID, or a military ID, or a passport, or, in some cases, even a light bill would be just fine. But I think this is why it was done. I don't think that the points of this law was conveyed properly, but election reform did have to occur in order to keep up with the times. I don't think we can have unstructured mail-in balloting just go on and then people have to question their election results every time somebody loses. So I don't know. And just, I want to move into the corporation thing later on, but anyway, I'd like to have your thoughts on that.
Well, okay. So my thing, maybe Georgia didn't have mail-in balloting, but like mail-in balloting and absentee ballots have been around in different states around the country for years. And it always just seems to be a problem when the party that loses. Then everybody starts to have a question, whether it was a Democratic loss or a Republican. Because I mean, pretty much almost the similar thing happened when Hillary lost against Trump. There was the whole Russians were involved, or the machine. Everything was, pretty much ever since 2000 election when Florida had the big debacle of voting. Yeah. It just seems almost every election is questioned. And I guess my problem
hanging chads.
I guess my problem is making it a problem now, especially after all the drama we just saw that occurred. And the reason I feel like the mistrust in the mail-in balloting happened, maybe not just in Georgia, was because the mistrust was spoken early before voting even happened. Trump and his campaign team started early saying, if we do mail-in voting, it's going to be fraudulent. If we do, just already sowing the seeds of mistrust. And I think maybe then he knew he might not win or something like that. I don't know what was the point of that, because I feel like if you were confident that you're going to win, who cares why the votes were coming in? If you just figured everybody was going to vote for you and you were, just so I'm winning the next election, I don't care where the votes come from because everyone's going to be voting for me. So it just already seemed like planning that mistrust got that started. And now for Georgia, for Georgia to be one of the big states that was the swing state in that, being a higher urban community around Atlanta, where they did a lot of rallying to get minorities, in there to vote. It just seems very weird and ironic timing that after the drama of saying that this presidential election was happening in Georgia, flipping, and barely flipping, now we want to restrict ways that people can vote. And I hear you on the mail-in balloting thing. I feel like there should be some structure with that, but I just wonder why now after everybody lost? And then it's I don't know. It just seems like the whole food and water thing really throws me off. I don't understand if the lines, if it's taking me 6 hours to vote, why can't someone give me some water?
I think with the water thing though, so you could give out water. I mean, you could put up a little stand and give out free water. You just can't campaign while you're doing it. I think that's the issue there. So do you remember, have you watched The Apprentice? Anybody back then?
I did.
Back in the day, yeah.
Well, there was an episode where Trump came out with Trump Ice water. I don't know if you remember that. He had a bottle of water with his face on it. It's a Trump Ice, and it was an actual product. So you think about that, and then think about, if Trump once again in 2024 and he starts handing out Trump Ice to the people in the battle in the line. That's what they're trying to prevent.
It says offering food or water to voters waiting in line is now a misdemeanor charge. To me, it doesn't read if it has propaganda. It just sounds like you want people not to want to wait in line for hours, because if you comfort them while they're waiting in line, they're more likely to stay in line to vote. But if they're getting hot, especially in Georgia or whatever, they're not going to want to wait in the line for 3 hours where they can't get any water. And that's the silly things to me that just seem like, how did you even get to that point with trying to validate mail-in voting? Like, to me, like, they're just like, I don't know.
I see what you mean.
Well,
and to Shazi's point, like places like, Atlanta, urban centers where they did have a chance to sway the election, best believe a lot of hard work from organizers and stuff to try to find every way they could get more people to cast ballots than ever before because of the ramifications of the election, at least on one side. And now that it's effective, that's what it smells. And now here are all these overhauling laws, instead of presenting it in a different way. It's bad. I'm kind of reiterating the same point I said earlier, but it's just like I don't know. It's just like a reaction to they didn't like the results. Therefore, let's change the rules. Let's make it more restrictive, when, it's just a lot of hard work people put in to get those things in place to begin with.
Well, that's exactly my thoughts on that as well, because I feel like it's a lot of hypocrisy going on within how things are looked upon. I do believe that if the outcome was different, that this would not be an issue. I think that, if the outcome is not what you like, hey, there's a problem with it. And the seeds were planted it's like an excuse that was already embedded into, hey, if I don't win, this is why. But if I do win, then everything is great. And that's the part that I see where it's a lot of hypocrisy. And based on the history of the former president, it was a lot of things that he either went with because it benefited his own needs, or if it wasn't beneficial to him, all of a sudden this was he was anti whatever it is, or didn't agree with it. Case in point, when Mike Pence basically wasn't listening to him at the during the Capitol Hill riots, all of a sudden Mike Pence is the enemy now. But all beforehand, he's a great guy. So it's kind of like the same thing. If you're for me, you're great. If you're not for me, you're painted as a bad person.
Yeah, and it's interesting too how, like, we brought up a couple times there that how Trump sort of laid the groundwork ahead of time. He was already talking about, well, the potential for fraud, even before, the election was underway. So once you have that in the atmosphere, it does become easy, if you so choose, to frame it that way. For one thing, it kind of actually made me laugh was they had there was a picture, I think in Michigan, of somebody counting the polls or counting ballots, and he had like a Biden mask on or something. And I'm like, maybe that's not the best photo op for
exactly.
But at the same time, that doesn't really prove anything, but that obviously that's a beautiful photo op if you're a conservative trying to prove
so many funny things.
Yeah, like that actually made me laugh, because I was like, but yeah, if you put it out there, it does become easy to make that the scenario. I mean, the media, it's common knowledge how it's a theater, it's theatrics, right? So they can create the image or the narrative that's going on. But to move on, like Rickett said, I want to see y'all's thoughts on, so these corporations, that's the big debate. Who is it? Mitch McConnell said, to hell, corporations got no business in politics. Well, I don't know. My personal opinion, I thought, so it's okay to take their money and to have them influence that way. But as soon as they want to make stands the opposite way, now it's, now they need to stay out of politics. So Rick, I want to kind of hear your rebuttal on that, because that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and I mean, this thing grinds my gears, honestly. You got,
you know what grinds my gears?
You know what grinds my gears, guys? No, it's stupid, man. Like, you got Coca-Cola, you got Delta speaking out about it. They have no business, especially Delta. Talking about how voter IDs are restrictive. They need an ID to board their planes. I mean, that's hypocrisy at its best. And then, for the MLB to move their game out of Atlanta, Georgia, which has, one of the highest concentrations of African-American businesses, and moving it to Denver, Colorado, which has similar restrictive laws than the ones that Georgia just instituted. It makes no sense at all whatsoever. And it seems unnecessary to have done that. I think they hurt a lot of the local businesses, especially now post-COVID. And who knows what's going to happen in the future, with upcoming court cases and, people reacting the way they do sometimes. Who knows how that's going to affect small businesses as well. But for them to move their game from Atlanta to Denver, it makes no sense at all. It hurts everybody. But anyway.
So I see. I like the second point that you brought up about like how it hurts the city in general. And I'm very much, obviously I'm a big city gal, and I appreciate, especially being here in Houston. I love when all these sports events come here, regardless of politics. Like, we come here and then like, it seems like the city really gets together. It doesn't matter if you're a conservative or Republican, black or white, or she's like, oh, the Super Bowl's here or something. Like, we're just all coming together. So I do enjoy that. However, I don't agree that corporations shouldn't make a stand or make a response. I don't know if this is the right response. I'm not 100% sure, because I like this thought process. I hadn't thought about that, just like it is actually going to hurt the community. But I don't see how you can separate individual citizens, corporations, or congressmen. We are all wrapped into politics, whether you're a congressman or whatever, because everything that the government does affects all of us. And especially being that Republicans tend to be a little bit more big business, or I'm speaking in general, like, I'm sure not every single.
Every Republican is all about big business. Even me.
They care more a little bit about the economy, which is fueled by big business, fueled by corporations. So the idea that they would think that things that they're doing that might upset the shoppers of corporations, and they wouldn't say anything, or especially after, the Black Lives Matter movement really showed, like, for the first time. I mean, we've had the Black Lives Matter movement going ever since Trayvon Martin, but this year really showed just how willing companies are to speak up and make change. And now they're doing it again for, stopping the violence against Asian Americans. And they're really speaking out. And I'm actually really proud of them for that, honestly, because I just feel like for so long, corporations have been silent. And I think it's a big turning point for them to open up and speak collectively and make a stand on things. Now, how they do it.
Yeah, I agree. As far as being silent, I think that's what the issue is, because with the whole narrative, and I want to take it back to LeBron James, when he was told by the news media to shut up and dribble. Well, why does he have to do that? Isn't this a free country where you have free speech? He's not saying anything that is violent or promoting any violence, or any hate speech. So in that aspect, why is it that athletes cannot speak out about political views? Why is it that corporations cannot take a stand on political views? The country is now evolving into where these corporations, and similar to the MLB, predominantly is minorities in the MLB, whether it's African American, which it actually isn't a large percentage of African American, but a lot of minorities from a lot of these other countries, in which, once again, the former president called them shitholes or dumpster places, stuff like that. So these are places that a lot of these guys are playing in this league, and they're going to another state to participate. And yes, they're bringing a lot of money to that city and the state. However, them not going, for instance, Houston has a large percentage of minority-owned businesses. Yeah, it would benefit us, But at the same time, you have to take a stand. There's sacrifices. We'll still be fine. They're still going to be fine without the MLB over there. I think the largest hit is going to be to the larger corporations. And a lot of those corporations are, once again, fueling money to these politicians that are making the laws. So by doing that, it's sort of a protest for the people to be able to have a voice and say, hey, this is not something that we're good with, and we want this to be changed. So in order, before that happens, okay, we're going to take our ball and we're going to play over here, and y'all are going to have to figure it out. So it's more like, hey, I'm independent. I don't need you. You need us almost or more than we need you. So I think it's a great way to make a stand.
Yeah, I see your point. Corporations, they can make a stand. But I guess it's the fashion of the way they did it and where they moved to. They moved to Denver, Colorado. I don't know. It's got the same, voter laws that Georgia just passed. That made no sense. Maybe they should have gone to California or something, where voting laws are not so strict anymore. I don't know.
I don't know this off the top of my head, but is Colorado a blue state or a red state?
It swings. Swings.
Swings.
Yeah, they have the never Trumper Republicans, and then most of the urban centers are blue, but then most of the rural areas are red. So it swings, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but the thing with the with LeBron James and the NBA and all that, LeBron James does have a voice. He could say whatever he wants, and that's totally fine. But where I get bothered by is when the NBA tries to restrict the speech when it comes to China. You see, they don't want you to talk about China. They don't want you to talk about the concentration camps over there. They don't want you to say anything bad about China because you might anger their population over there or the government. And so when you're allowed to say, which you can, by the way, you're allowed to say negative or positive things about America, but mostly it's negative. But you're not allowed to say anything negative about China at all, or they'll censor you and punish you. That is where it becomes bothersome. That's where it becomes a little creepy now. Mm-hmm. You have, LeBron James can speak all about he wants to, and he should, about Black Lives Matter and what's going on in the communities here in America, of course. But he can't wear a jersey that says Free Hong Kong on the back at a game. No, absolutely not. That's not allowed. And that's where it becomes bothersome. Not just to me, but, a lot of people who are watching at home that know what's going on. No, that's go ahead.
I was gonna say, I understand totally where you're coming from in regards to that. And I also disagree, with Daryl Morey being the general manager of the Houston Rockets, who actually sparked it with the tweet that he made about, I think he said #free Hong Kong or something like that.
Yeah.
In the tweet, and that actually sparked everything. The Rockets was one of the biggest sports markets in China, especially having Yao Ming as a former player, and he was an ambassador for pro basketball in China. So all of the Houston Rockets team and organization was actually, it was about money. They was making multi-million, maybe billions of dollars from China. And of course China cuts that off, and then they cut the entire NBA off. Money is power. So of course they're like, okay, hey, we're making 200 million or 200 or $1 billion, and now China cuts us off. Now we're at 500 million. So we need to make friends with China. So I do understand that point, but I do also see the other side where I see that if, a lot of times you need to make sure and that things are good in your house before you go and tell somebody how to run their other household or their neighbor's house. So I think that, on the other side, hey, let's look at what we're doing, make sure that we're running our household the way it's supposed to. And then, once that's taken care of, now we can go and say, hey, maybe let's talk about what somebody else is doing.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I see your point, excellent point. You're right. I mean, you have to see what's going on in your house first. And trust me, this house is not clean at all. There's a lot of skeletons and so much bad things going on. But
yeah, and just way back in the day with Muhammad Ali, he was like, why would I go fight in Vietnam when they haven't done nothing to me? the people that are here in my own homeland are doing worse things to me than the people that we're fighting against that I'm supposed to go kill for people that don't even like me. So, just by looking at it that way, it's like, let's take care of what's going on here first, because it's a lot of things we need to correct and fix here before we go and, like I said, tell other people.
Start criticizing everybody else over there. Yeah. Yeah. But, it's just, that's, you're right. It's just when the NBA gets involved and tells you not to do it, slaps your hand about it and says, stop talking about China. It gets a little creepy and kind of hypocritical. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many things that we have to worry about here at home anyway, that we shouldn't be peeking off our neighbors, over the fence.
Especially right now, we've got, who knows what would have happened if, I'm sure Rick will debate this, but had we continued in the direction that we were going, it wasn't looking good. And that kind of works into a good transition. So now, obviously with the George Floyd incident last summer, I'm sure unless you were living under a rock, obviously that set off, divisions within our nation, protests, kind of a microscope on, hey, what are police departments really doing? How are they operating? What do we need to fix? What, how much is systematic racism play into, defending the public, and how do we solve that problem? There's all kinds of opinions. I mean, it's all over the place, but let's talk about the trial a little bit. Cause now that's, so Derek Chauvin, the gentleman who was responsible for the death of George Floyd. Well, of course, I guess that under the court of law, that's what they're trying to decide right now. Is it, so the counts are, he's got anywhere from, was it second degree manslaughter to, I honestly, I don't want to speak out of turn with what the possible charges, but anyway, so the police chief, the Minneapolis police chief just testified a couple of days ago, correct?
Yeah.
Which is significant because, a lot of times the police, what they refer to as the blue wall, right? You don't talk about, or you defend each other, but obviously circumstances are a little different in this. Obviously, too, significant to this, the Minneapolis police chief is the first African-American police chief in that city, stating that he did not follow protocol, which seems to be the commonality now of they've had medical experts. Yeah, I mean, Rick, what's your take on this and how this is with the direction it's going and what you see could possibly happen?
Yeah, this is I don't know. It's hard, Of course, emotions run high and everything's, when you talk about this case in particular. But one of the reasons it's so hard to prosecute a cop is because they can always just say, look, it's protocol. I was trained to do this. And, you don't have to prove the man innocent. You just have to prove that there's doubt. And it sounds to me, I'm watching the trial, and it sounds to me like that's what the defense is going for. They're going for doubt, bringing up toxicology reports and the moments before Mr. Floyd's death, and talking about the gentleman he was with in the car and his role in the whole thing. They're sowing doubt in the jury. Unfortunately, I think that this may end up in acquittal. That's an unpopular, belief, but you don't have to prove innocence. It's just doubt, and I think that's where it's headed. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that and all the witnesses that came in that were around the area all said, I wish I could have done something differently. And hindsight's 2020. They should have probably gone in and stopped the defendant.
But should they have? They shouldn't have had to have.
Exactly. They shouldn't have to. Yeah. But
if you're watching somebody who's, been given the badge and the gun and the privilege to do that, to me, that's where the ball. So it'd be really disappointing. Obviously, depending on the outcome of this, what do y'all see Shazi and Doc, as far as what could possibly be the reactions, just obviously immediately, and then down the road, like what kind of effect, like what weighs on this? Obviously, it's pretty significant.
Okay, so for me, to protect my own peace, because I had a really, really, really hard time when this happened. I was angry for weeks. I haven't been looking at the trial in very much detail. I get snippets on my CNN app that says who's witness, like who protests or who's giving a testimony today, and I'll get snippets, but I haven't been watching or listening in detail because it is still so emotional and raw for me.
It's hard.
I don't want to I know that was happening. And, in my heart, I believe that he's, guilty. I'm not the juror. But, I believe he didn't have to murder that man. There were so many other options that could have been taken. And it was just excessively done. That's my own personal opinion, but that's not what you're really asking me. My point is that I think, I agree with you. We've seen enough justice go or not happen in this country with these police trials, just because of things like that, like the doubt or just other little tiny things they can sneak in there to make the juror like, well, we don't know 100% guilty, like 99.5% maybe, but it's not 100, so we can't put him guilty. And that does annoy me, and it really ticks me off about our justice system. But I think if he is acquitted, I think we're going to see stuff that we haven't seen. I think it's going to be bad.
I mean, definitely Minneapolis is going to be pretty bad, but what about other cities? You think it'll, Houston was really peaceful, by the way, during the summer of 2020. Those protests were strong, but they were peaceful for the most part, compared to other cities in America. Of course, I don't think anyone's going to set up an autonomous zone or anything like that. But anyway, that's something to be proud of here in Texas, in Houston in general. The populace here knows exactly how to behave for these kinds of cases. But Doc, what do you think? I mean,
I don't believe he will be acquitted. I do believe he will be found guilty. I do believe that he murdered him. That on that sidewalk or on that street. He could have done a lot of things differently. Also, the other police officers nearby with them could have, intervened. Of course, the other people that were standing out there, the regular, civilians, if they had intervened, what would have happened to them? Would they have been shot? Would they have been tased? Would they have been killed? You never know. So you could take that chance, but you're risking your life. So the police officers have the authority. So having that power, of course, comes a lot of responsibility, and you have to be able to know and understand that this guy here has his hands handcuffed, and behind him. He's already saying he can't breathe. He's already saying, his neck is hurting. So at that point in time, after 2 minutes, you should be able to let up and say, okay, he's detained. We're just waiting for, whatever
ambulance or whatever. Yeah.
Several officers there. So I don't understand the reasoning behind staying on his neck for that long period of time. And I haven't watched every single day of the case, but from what I gathered, that he actually passed away before getting to the hospital. So therefore, he probably had passed away while he was on the street. But I think the defense is saying that he had other drugs in his system, which caused the heart failure or that led to his death. Which anything is a possibility. However, of course, putting that knee on the neck also definitely, we know that for sure, contributed to his loss of life.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate the way it occurred. But you're right. I mean, the knee was on his neck. But there were some instances where the knee was on his back, but that wasn't always the case. I mean, we have video of that, of the knee being on the neck. But for me, though, I watched a little bit of the trial, and the most touching moment was when his girlfriend testified. That was sad because No, I mean, you guys should watch it. It's, you know, it made me kind of choke up a little bit because she talks about how they met. You know, she was at a Salvation Army visiting the father of her children at the time. He was going through some hard times, and she was having a hard day. And then Mr. Floyd shows up and asks her what's wrong, and asks her to pray with him, you know, for a better day. And that's how they met, you know, with a prayer. And you know, then she goes on to talk about the death of his mom and how that made him go into substance abuse, and it was more of a downward spiral for him. The whole story it's touching. It really is. It shows, you know, George Floyd, the human, and I'll say the flawed human, because we're all flawed. We all go through these these troubling times, and it you know, really puts a story behind the man. And and it leads up to her story, led up to the convenience store, you know, where he was I guess murdered, or you know, where he passed away outside. She goes into detail about the gentleman that he was with, who pleaded the fifth, you know, trying to prevent self-incrimination.
And that's significant too, because we were talking about it via text, Rick, you and I, and and Ben too. And that's kind of because obviously, so the ramifications for that, right? If he did indeed, you know, provided drugs to George Floyd, so by pleading the fifth, he essentially takes himself out of the
equation.
What's the word? Right.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously his testimony would have been probably beneficial. In other words, you think this hurts the defense or the prosecution more by him being silent?
I think it hurts the prosecution by him being silent, because so I was reading about why he may have pled the fifth, and this is all speculation, but they say the reasons is because he may have provided drugs to Mr. Floyd, to which then he might have ingested prior to his arrest. And now, you know, the defense is saying that's why he died, right? I don't know. But if that is the case, then this gentleman he's with, who provided the drugs, can be liable for murder now. It's probably third-degree murder, because he provided him a substance that caused him to die based on circumstances. And that's why he might have pleaded the fifth. But you know, barring that, I think you're both right. I think the cop should have, you know, after being on his neck for 2 minutes, he didn't have to be there for 8. He could have used something else. He was already handcuffed. He was on the floor. He was subdued. What was he going to do? Run with his hands behind his back to
can't even
where?
Get up.
He can't even get up.
Yeah.
You know?
That's my biggest issue.
Yeah.
I don't care if he was on drugs.
Exactly.
Honestly, it's because to me, all that's like irrelevant. And they tried to do the same thing with Trayvon as well. Tried to paint him in a bad light, that he wasn't this young boy, that he was on drugs too. But like, okay, so everyone in this world has done something. I mean, maybe not drugs, but no one is perfect, whether it's drugs or something. And my thing is, if the whole end game of like what happened that day resulted in this man's death because of like, he was originally called because of like counterfeit money, or wasn't that
right? He had like a $20 bill there. The cashier was the clerk at the convenience store was questioning a $20 bill that he presented.
But that's another thing. He was given that $20 bill. I'm sorry. He was given the $20 bill. He didn't even know it was fake. The gentleman he was with gave it to him.
And that's my point. Like, okay, even if it was fake
exactly.
money, why is somebody dead over a counterfeit $20 bill? I can see if he went in there trying to rob the store, fully armed, he was shooting up people, doing a mass shooting, and you got to take him out. I don't understand. Even if he was on drugs with counterfeit money, he was subdued, and there's no way in my mind that it should lead to somebody's death. Kind of like so many of the other ones, Michael Brown with the CDs. I'm just like, how do these incidents result in death when they weren't life-threatening situations at the start? That to me is the problem. And saying that if he was on drugs, maybe that's why that other guy didn't, plead the fifth. That makes sense what you're saying. But to me, I'm like, even if he was, he still shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be. You're right.
Unless he died of a drug overdose later on his own, separately from this cop incident, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, and even, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Go ahead, Doc.
I was gonna say I agree with Shazi. And if you think about it, the guy that got murdered is who we're talking about, asking questions and digging into his character. But the guy who's accused of being a murderer, we're not even talking about what he's done in the past and how many, types of arrests he's had and what run-ins he's had. So it's like it already, you can already see like, okay, we're looking into the wrong person's past.
Yep.
He's not the guy that murdered somebody. The guy that murdered somebody is the one that we need to be.
He's not here to defend himself anymore. He's not here to talk about his character. Like Derek Chauvin is, if we want to research him, we can ask him questions. You're trying to paint a bad picture on a man that was a dad, a boyfriend, like
he was a son. I mean,
just so many things, and he's not here to defend himself, and that's disgusting to me.
Yeah, right. I didn't even see that. I didn't see that way, but you're right.
Yeah, that was very well put. And then, the other part, Derek Chauvin, indeed does have a past, right? Like there's multiple disciplinary issues, and not that hasn't been stated. I mean, it's that's it. That's in the public knowledge too, but that's not the primary. You know what I mean? You hear way more about all the things that George Floyd has done in his past, and like you said, Shazi, like if you could, if I did something right and I was in the public spot, like they could trash me, for all kinds of things and paint me in the picture where I was, I would look like a demon.
I think that's already the case, man.
Actually, it might be easier with me, to be honest with you, but it with anybody, it's if you've got the time and you've got the the framework to do it, you can paint a picture. That's what the media does. And to me too, like with both cases, right? The first topic we discussed, and then this as well. That's why we have this show, is because the media is going to do what they do, right? But the public, you can't just accept this at face value. You have to have these types of conversations, and you have to see what information is being presented, why, when it's being presented, what's the focus, how come all of a sudden, we talked about it on a previous show, all of a sudden COVID's over, supposedly, right? Or at least it's subsiding to a degree. And then mass shooter.
Oh God.
Is in the news.
The crazes are out, man. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't have.
Let's say the pandemic's still here and put everybody back in the house.
Right, and then let's everybody stay home.
We didn't have mass shooters for a whole year. Can you believe that? It was. It was almost like we were.
And then now that things are opening up, they're like, okay, well, let's just get back.
Here we go. It's time.
Let's get back to shooting everybody.
Right. Let's go back to old times where we're more comfortable this way.
It's like it's almost as if we weren't in America for a while there. I mean, it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. It's just, I think, but it's just very important, I think, because that's something that they don't tell you in schools, unless you just, you take some kind of crazy college course where you've got a real, a professor that's really trying hard to, do the right thing. And they teach you about, media literacy and how to analyze this stuff. But that's something that to the general public doesn't even grasp. They just, everything is face value. Well, they said it on CNN, or they said it on Fox News, and just take it to be fact. But there's a very deliberate, you know what I mean? It's like, what's that old movie with Wag the Dog? I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah. And then I want to also point out that, whether, he is acquitted, which I don't believe will happen. If he is, I think that's going to bring even more urgency to reform and change. A lot of times, unfortunately, some bad things have to happen, and we have to experience bad things in order to make changes. So just like, it's already happened and changes have been made. Now we're going through the trial. We're going to find out what's going to happen there, and then see what's going to happen if we're going to continue with the change. But what it does is like with this podcast, we have people with different backgrounds and different views, but we're able to come together and talk about it and have a conversation about, things that we were quiet about beforehand because we didn't want to share these thoughts with other people because we didn't want them looking at us a certain way or have a certain perception. So whether you're super right conservative or super, left liberal, you can still meet somewhere in the middle and at least have those conversations to understand why is it that that MLB is leaving, to go to another state. At least we're talking about it and they can explain it, but without explaining why you're doing something or your intent, then that's where the communication is lacking. And then that's where the problems start, because now people just stop listening and they resort to being stubborn and taking their stance, and nothing gets moved.
Yeah. And I was going to say, Twitter is not debate. Twitter is not debate. Twitter is the worst thing ever. You don't find out other people's point of views on Twitter. Okay, you just don't. Anyway, it's an echo chamber. People don't want to talk to you. People don't want to read what your comments are. They just want to put up whatever they're going to put for shock value, and then that's it. People pick sides and it gets split apart. So
yeah, and it's reaction based. And well, the thing is, though, I can honestly say it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of terrible things have happened in the last several years. Okay, but looking at it from the perspective of like Doc was pointing out, there's just more public discourse on issues. So I remember, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, all you could hear about anywhere was the damn Kardashians. And I mean, there was a point, right, where it was just like
Paris Hilton.
Anything, yeah, it was so celebrity obsessed that there wasn't nothing was really being talked about, or at least now you can't hide from it. So I'm glad to see corporations taking stands on stuff for right or wrong. If we have freedom of speech, by God, express it, because there's a lot of places that don't. You know what I mean? Look what's going on in Myanmar. People getting gunned down, a military coup taking over. Hey, we're not immune just because it hasn't happened. Anything could happen anywhere.
We were pretty close.
Yeah, no kidding, right? It's damn near got. If that wasn't a damn wake up call, I don't know what is. So, especially for young people, man, if you're not having these kind of conversations, you're not thinking about this stuff. If you're, go be young. You got to be young and have fun. I mean, God forbid what I was interested in at that time, but it's a different world. The world changes in it changes so rapidly that it's just things can develop, like I said, like that. It can happen in a heartbeat. Just all it takes is one election or we really are one election away from becoming a police state, or any kind of situation you might, your worst nightmare could happen. Anything could happen. We're writing history as we speak. So I don't know.
And my concern with the media is, I like CNN, but mostly because I like the antics. I like the one-liners that are just funny. But maybe you get into Team CNN or Team Fox or something, whatever. My problem is you don't even know where to go to now to validate what's truth. So I have I do have a couple friends on the right on my Facebook, and they'll say mainstream media is run by Democrats, right. And they go and they I follow these other people, and I'm like, well, how do you know the information they're telling you is
right? Yeah,
legit. So to me, I find it hard that it's just, where do we go to find facts? Because even with our podcast, still some of the things we've said tonight, and even on our individual podcasts, are still my opinion, a speculation, or what I mean. Where do people go now? It used to be back in the day, the news was supposed to be, journalists were supposed to have integrity, and what you read in the newspapers and saw, we're always supposed to be what you're, where you could go to get facts. And now it's just opinions. So it's really hard.
I go to OAN, Ben Shapiro.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's where I get all my news.
That explains a lot.
Fox News. Right, Twitter.
But that's the other point too. The bubble you stay in. Yeah. So one time I went to get a car done somewhere, and they had the Newsmax. I'd never seen anything on Newsmax ever, but they had
it's one of Rick's favorites.
And
Alex Jones.
And I say this like, I'd never seen anything, but every single commercial was pro-Trump. They talked about Trump on coins, Trump's on dollar bill. And I've never seen any of this because the stations and the bubble that I'm in is so anti-Trump. I was so shocked. I was just sitting there like, oh, what? Like, and that's just to show you like the bubble you can get in. And like, cause I honestly was still shocked at the number of people that even voted for Trump, because in my world, everybody I know doesn't like him, so I'm not exposed. So it's just, you can just get so bubbled and like not know what the other side is thinking or doing.
And that speaks to the nature of how we consume information now versus how we did 20 years ago, right? Like it used to be, like you said, it was traditional media. You'd flip on a channel. You had only so many channels, whatever was on in between you trying to watch, whatever sitcom. Well, now, everything is, not only is it just catered towards that, but it's deliberately done that way to they make the more money. So you get the more clicks. Because if you're already going down one, you've got the momentum with, this guy likes, conservative speak. It's going to flash you every single thing you can possibly think of to keep your attention. So then all of a sudden you create somebody who might've been like, oh yeah, I think I might agree with a couple of things Trump says, to like, I'm worshiping a temple of Trump,
the coins and
bowing. Yeah, I'm bowing before his feet because now I've consumed 30 hours every couple of days on, somebody beating into my head every week. It's easy to sell that. You can go to a car dealership and the guy can paint a picture of why you should buy, you know what I mean? The Nissan Altima with all the features. I say that, I joke around because that's what I drive. With all the features, so you're paying like $15,000 out of your price range. Well, by God, you want to protect your kids, don't you? So you got, you got to have the reverse cam. So it's very easy for somebody to paint a picture to make you think one way or the other, as we see.
Don't forget you need to get that warranty too.
You're right. That warranty, that's 100% profit for their pockets. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to get that. But with that, guys, I think we're going to head into this little break here. So take a little pause. We got bladders. We got to take restroom breaks. We got to do our thing here. And I'm going to the little interlude tune. I'm going to give you Diz Rockwell on the music here. And also too, I forgot at the top of the hour, shout out to Mike Tacklebox for our illustrious intro music. I can't do that without shouting him out. So we will see you very shortly. Just hold on tight. We'll be right back. And we are back for the second half, party in the back. What's going on, Rick?
Hey, well, anyway, so, last show we talked about how the military is going to reveal a lot of these UFOs in the next coming months.
Right. They got till June 25th, correct?
June 25th, that's right.
If our calculations are correct.
Yep. And the military is going to reveal some of the information they've gathered off UFOs, or they call it unidentified aerial phenomenons, UAPs.
Yep, that's the new term.
So because of that, I went down this rabbit hole on YouTube, of all places.
Always a good idea.
Yeah, Bob Lazar was a very popular guest on Coast to Coast and with Art Bell. And so I went down the rabbit tube of listening to what he had to say. And he talks, Bob Lazar's claim to fame is that he was a engineer at Area 51, and he got to play with a lot of the technology of UFOs that they captured. So obviously there's a lot of, Bob Lazar has always been a controversial figure because people will say, well, he's you know, he's a hoaxer. There's no record of him ever working there. He's just making this up. So I went in with that in mind, but then I started listening to some of the stuff he said, and it kind of makes sense because these shows were back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and based on what we're seeing from the military now, with the Navy pilot chasing this UFO off San Diego back in 2014, a lot of what Bob Lazar talks about is evident in these videos now. So that got my mind working, thinking maybe this guy is onto something. According to him, they captured something like 6 UFOs at Area 51, each that look different. He says that they're powered by some sort of a gravitational object device that's extremely efficient. And he says that there's some sort of element in here that's not evident in Earth that creates its own gravitational field, and that's how you can maneuver the ships. And the way that he was speaking about the maneuverability of these ships is really, it reflects on the videos that was released by the Navy. So, this fighter pilot chasing this UFO back in 2014, it's hard to tell whether this was actually a UFO that he was chasing, or was this something man-made that we've been able to reverse engineer off the crafts that we retrieved back over, back in the 50s. I don't know. It's really interesting. I went down this rabbit hole. I was on it for about 2 hours, maybe 3, one day, then maybe like 4 hours the day after. So anyway, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, did we catch UFOs, 6 of them?
So for me, UFO is a term that it just means unidentified flying object. And that means that could be an alien spacecraft, or it could be a man-made object that we don't know what it is. So to me, I've always looked at UFO could be anything that we just don't know what it is. It doesn't necessarily automatically mean aliens, but I like to always think it is. Of course. Yeah, I'm like, it is an alien. To me, I've always like, it's always alien. For me, I just feel like it's just too coincidental. Like, I can see why some people would maybe want to do hoax and, claim the fame, like the people who get abducted and stuff like that. But first say they've been abducted by aliens and they were brought back and stuff. And I guess my point is just like, I guess, what do you really get from making that a hoax? Like, from lying about it? I guess I don't like, okay, maybe you get 15 minutes of fame, but then I'm really trying to think of like, you don't really get,
you ruin your reputation, basically.
Yeah. So it's actually like, almost like, it's almost bad for you, like because you lose your credibility, and like, so why would you go out of your way for to tell people things that might make you look crazy or unbelievable, like when you know that might be the result? So to me, I'm like, what there's nothing to gain from lying about it. Exactly. So I'm like, why would they lie?
I mean,
and also, okay, go ahead.
Oh, if you knew somebody who presented themselves as, if you're at a bar and your friend brings somebody else and the claim to fame is, hey, he was abducted by aliens, you should ask him about it. What are you gonna think? Is this a joke or
his claim to fame?
Well, I think society has also made it so your immediate reaction is, what the hell is this guy talking about? Because I feel like the path was to make us believe that aliens don't exist and everything you see is in these sci-fi movies and that's not real and everything. But I look at it from like kind of a science perspective and just the cosmos in general. Okay, and yes, I do obsessively watch Ancient Aliens. They have been reaching a little bit lately, but in the beginning seasons, they were really on point with some stuff. But I mean, the point for me is that there's no way we can tell. Maybe it's a logical fallacy, but there's no way we can say there's no life out there because we cannot travel or communicate fast enough in anyone's lifetime right now to cover the spans of the universe to send anything out for even somebody to catch it, recognize it, and know where we're at. My other point of this is that, if you look at the span of the universe, like how old it is, and eventually Earth is going to be gone, when the sun becomes a red giant later, like 500 billion years from now. And if the universe is still around, nobody after us will even know Earth ever existed because we're going to be gone. So we have no idea what civilized planets might have existed before us that are now gone because their star burned out. There's just too many ways that there could be life, and we don't know. And also we assume life looks like life on Earth. And that's the assumption that NASA actually is trying to like look a little bit beyond that too. But it's just like, we know carbon-based systems here, but what does life could be something different.
Yeah.
To me, I just think this,
100%. Yeah. 100%. Like we're working only with the parameters that we observe on Earth, right? As life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what if they've superseded even like physical locations, or, you know what I mean? What if they move just as electricity or as energy? I mean, I'm going that far down the thing. It could be anything. And that's why, like, Rick, what was it, last show or a couple shows ago, you were talking about how, well, so in the UFO, community or the discussion, there's always the argument, like, is it nuts and bolts? Like, as far as, is it an actual metal spacecraft that physically travels from another location to us, or they interdimensional beings? That was always the big debate amongst the UFO discussions in the 90s up until now. So I always lean toward it's more of an interdimensional thing. Like they're probably so far.
Hi.
Hey, no, it's all good. Exactly. Like it's I see. That's cute. And you know what I mean? Like, so they're not even playing by the same rules. So when we observe these things, and that's where I was getting at with what you brought up, Rick, is like these. So what was the recent one, some of the ones that the Air Force and the Navy have reported, where that they don't move in the same way that anything that's constrained by our understanding of gravity would possibly move. Well, that's true, but maybe it's not even what we're seeing. Yeah, it's not even actually there. It's observations completely not even within our scientific understanding, because it's not in the exact, you know what I mean? It's not even in the same dimension. It's like in some sort of, I don't know, some sort of state that's, we can maybe observe it temporarily, but not, but it's not on the same plane that we're operating in,
I was going to say, to Shazi's point, there's, you said that there's no way to find out whether there's a civilization from a long time ago, right? In outer space. You don't have to look to outer space for that. Even here on Earth, the Earth is something like, 4 billion years old or something. And we would never be able to tell whether there was an earlier advanced civilization, even before the dinosaurs and all that other stuff, there would be no way to find out whether there was ancient humans with advanced technology that existed prior to us, because I think our history our prehistory only goes back, a couple 100 million years, 400 million years ago. But the Earth is 4 billion years old. So what happened before that? We don't know. It's intriguing to know that our archaeological records and fossils and carbon dating, all of that stuff can only take us so far. Before that, there's no way of knowing what it was before then.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you on that. And that's what's really crazy. Like, and it's also just look at the amount of stuff on our Earth we still can't even explain about the Earth. So what makes us think that we can really just go ahead and explain, like, oh, there's no life out there in cosmos? But I mean, I agree with you. Like, and then also like written history and stuff like that is still pretty recent in the age of the length of time for the Earth. Like, I watched Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson because he's like my favorite. And I like when he spanned the universe into a calendar year. And it's really crazy the way they did it, because it was like the span of time that would be human life in a year is like the last, like almost, I think it was 30 minutes of the calendar year, December 31st, like at the beginning of the universe started in January. And it's so crazy to think about that. And then you think about just how like the sun and the solar system has been like, they were here longer. That like the sun was here first, and then the Earth, and then the universe in general. It's just crazy. And you're right. Like and the Earth has evolved. There's been 5 mass extinctions. Everyone always talks about the dinosaurs, but there were extinctions before, and that. And the world changed. Like humans couldn't even look different, and we like there's just so many things that and it just fascinates me. And I had a really like weird experience the other day, because I'm also I'm a Christian. So I have this like weird universal view of faith because I believe like God created the universe and everything like that as well. But the whole Big Bang versus creation, and all that stuff. And I feel like I can never get back to the beginning. Like I feel like even if I accept the Big Bang theory, I was like, okay, well, what was there that caused these things? Something had to be here to have a Big Bang. So what was there that caused that? And I can it's just a weird, like I can never get back to the beginning because they're constantly like, well, something had to be there before that. And you're like, you just keep going and going. And it's just like no explanation for it right now. And they're even still trying to figure out just how the moon was formed. Like
we can't figure that out.
Theories, but
like infinity is such a hard concept to grasp. Like you said, like to imagine there to be a beginning. Well, theoretically, a beginning is the prerequisite that there was something before. You know what I mean? Like if you have a starting line of a race, well, there's space behind that starting line where you have to put your feet. Does that make sense? Like there's not, there's something before that. So, and also too, a lot of times with these, the ideas we have of these debates between science and religion, a lot of times too, I think the translation just gets lost. I think a lot of time they're actually speaking of the same phenomena. It's just how you, how you frame it or how you categorize, how you interpret it. Yeah. Because, with religion, right? Like there's an idea, but of course that idea has been, there's cultural baggage put on it. There's linguistic baggage put on it. There's all kinds of things put on it.
So a telephone game that you play from generation
there's a
to generation.
But once you filter it down, once you run it through and you see what was, trying to be conveyed, a lot of times it's not. In other words, I'm puzzled sometimes by people arguing the semantics over things and, really dig their heels in on saying like, the Big Bang means that this doesn't exist. Well, no, sometimes it's more in the interpretation, but to that point too, it really is funny or not funny, but intriguing to think about the possibilities of like, because we just think in beginning of an end. And is that just because we're human and that's we are born and then we die and there's no other way we can
think about
conceive
time,
of is that just part of our limitations as a flesh and blood being that we can't grasp the fact that something just always existed? I don't know.
And that's so cool to me because we're on the same page. I'm like, there's no explanation in the Bible exactly how God created anything. And the time constraints in the Bible, they say a day. We don't know what a day means. It could have been, a day could have been millions of years. We don't know. So in my mind, I've always combined the both. I'm like, who knows? God could have did the Big Bang to create it. So like, I'm a little bit more like you, where I don't think one negates the other. And again, like with space time, I just feel like because like we just like space and time, we kind of discovered it, but it's just it's always been there. We put a name to them. But like the cool thing is like the speed of light and everything, like something that Einstein would say is like, if you were able to travel at the speed of light, everything would be happening at the same time. You would see the beginning and the end of the universe at the same time. And like the idea of like traveling at some warp crazy speed, like I just couldn't even imagine, like, it's just so unfathomable. I'm like, but like, I'm like, how did he even know that? Cause he's just, I'll believe whatever he says. He's way smarter than I.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't think that way. And like, it's just crazy.
I've been going down this rabbit hole again on space time. I mean, about looking at time dilation, distance dilation and how gravity affects time. And I saw this one theory that said that gravity does not cause time. It is time that causes gravity. Yeah.
Wait, what?
So yeah, it was like, that's interesting, because people say, okay, you have this mass in the universe that's creating gravity, and because it's a heavy mass, it's bending time to stretch it longer. But if you have space and time on an X and Y axis, you're going to have, you're going to be solid on, you're going to be passing through time. But because you have, because gravity becomes less as you go higher from the mass, then it's kind of strange. You're going to be kind of tipping over. The reason you tip over is because gravity is less. How can I split this? Okay. Okay. Wait a second, guys. As you know,
my brain already melted. So whatever you say is going to make sense.
I'm like, yeah. I believe you. Yeah.
As you know, time goes by faster when you leave the mass, right? That's why the space station, the clocks in the space station go a little faster than the clocks here on Earth. The GPS satellites have to be recalibrated every so often to account for the passage of time up in space versus here on Earth. So the theory behind that is that because time travels a little faster up here, then you're almost tipping over to the mass. Okay, so you're going like this. Time is going. You're going through the space time, and because it's different, you're tipping over, and that causes gravity. Okay,
like distorting that.
Yeah, it's distortion. It's this distortion. Okay, so anyway, I think our listeners probably tuned out by this point, but
but that's so cool because they did this exact same thing about time travel. Like if you were able to travel through a wormhole or a black hole, and how like the time at one end like would be this time, and then like when you come through on the other end, the time, even though it's the same amount of time, like the time is different. I'm not sure 100%, but I get what you're saying, but like the difference in time, like
I can explain that. Okay, so they were saying that in order to go back in time, because you can go into the future, they've established that you can go into the future if you stay like in a massive object like Interstellar, like in the movie Interstellar, how they went to that planet with a black hole, and the person at the space station had aged 27 years, but the people on the surface of this planet hadn't because of the gravitational pull. So you can technically go into the future. But people were talking, okay, how about going to the past? Well, they were saying that you could technically do that if you had a wormhole, okay, where one side of the wormhole was next to a super massive heavy object that slowed time down. So if you were to go through it, you would end up in an area, in a land before time, I guess you should say, in a before present time.
The dinosaurs?
Yes, because like in the dinosaurs, exactly. Because you're in an area here that's slowing down versus on the other side of the wormhole where time's going a little faster. So that's technically how you can go back in time.
Technically time travel exists just because the speed of light. Every time we look at the moon, we're looking at it a minute behind, because it just like we're still just now we get light from stars that are no longer there, and like the idea of that is because like we literally can't see it fast enough because of the time it takes the light to travel for us to see it. So it's like it's just proven that like there is some sort of time travel that exists in the cosmos. Now maybe we can't do it yet as humans, but it exists there. Like at least light's doing it, because it's taking it's like we're in this present moment right here, and it's still traveling back from like the Big Bang to like kind of where we can now see dust and remnants. And if we go the longer we exist, the further back past the Big Bang we can see. And that's what they're hoping to get out. Like, but that's going to be millions of years. Like we won't be here. Darn. But they're like, we're just now being able to see some of that. They're able to see the dust and things from like
way back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just crazy to think about that, because it's like, it's not happening anymore. Like it happened and we're just now seeing it. Like, or when the supernovas happen, they probably happened like years ago, and we're just now seeing them because the distance in space is so massive, it takes that long. And all of that just is so fascinating to me. It just boggles my mind. It's like I'll literally watch space documentaries like all the time. I love it. And somehow I'll always end up in quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on, but this still sounds cool. The rabbit hole always leads me to quantum mechanics.
Yeah. I've listened to some quantum mechanics stuff, but mainly in the realm of space time and how we can go back and forth to the future. I don't know what it is. Maybe I get nostalgic for older times, for when we didn't have the news shoved in our face 24/7 or before smartphones happened. I'm still old enough to remember what it was like to not carry a phone with you.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. and or not needing to find out something right away. You were like, oh, whatever, I'll just go to the library.
Things weren't spoiled for you right away because everyone watched something fast and they put it on social media. And so then you said, now you've got to like watch things the instant it comes out because there's going to be spoilers all over the internet or your phone. And you're like, gosh, I remember being so stressed out about Endgame. I was like, I have to see it the first day because if I don't, someone's going to ruin it for me.
And you wouldn't even be able to help it. Like you could try, you'd have to almost like lock yourself in a, in a cavern to not see it or hear about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I get nostalgic for times like that. So it makes me want to go back and look up time travel and see if that's ever going to be possible or not. So I don't know.
I think it will. I think it will.
It would be nice.
Yeah, and I think it's just the concept of it. Like it probably is, but it's maybe not in the form. It's not like you're going to jump in a DeLorean and like you're going to physically be. I mean, I guess the thing I always think about with time travel is, every time travel movie, right? They always at least toy with the idea of, okay, so you go back to the past, but now you're there, right? So you're affecting, and then you kind of get into this whole spiral of like the things that you did while you were in, 1920 affects the present. So then you get in this weird conundrum where you're just you being there is already changing the time from when you came. So how does that affect you now? It's like, it's when you look
like a pretzel.
You're in a,
exactly.
It's like a pretzel, or like you're looking into the mirrors. If you've ever been in like a room where they've got a mirrors like on each side and it just goes basically to infinity. Like if you look in one side and then you look behind you, the mirror just the reflection bounces off each other.
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind, honestly, whenever I see that. And that's stupid, but
good.
it blows my
glad
mind.
But no, that's crazy. It is cool when you think about it. I like it. And I like all this talk. This is my stuff. Cause like, I love, this is the stuff that gets my gears going. Like, I love it. Like just thinking about like, the grandfather conundrum of going back in time, the pretzel. And then like even an Endgame did a weird take on it where they made you going to the past, your new future, so that current future you left now is your past. But I'm still like, but you still are going back to the past. It doesn't affect the future you just left. I still try to get the Endgame time travel, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, it's just so many theories. Like, could you really affect things? Or then like negatively, there's a documentary I was watching about time travel. I think it was how the universe works, or the universe explained, something on Amazon Prime. And they were like, what if somebody went back and changed the outcome of a war? Like if somebody was able to go back to 1945 and have the Nazis win, and then everything just kind of like, and I was like, that's kind of creepy. So we don't want those people going back. We don't want those
Interesting.
Yeah, and I did think about it like that. Like they could really change.
Did you ever watch Quantum Leap growing up?
I've heard of it. I've not watched it.
Oh, I should have watched it.
I think I came late in my nerdy.
Scott Bakula.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Bakula. Yeah, you should watch it. I think it's on Netflix or something now. The old episodes.
I've heard of it. Yeah, it sounds like something I should watch.
Yes, Quantum Leap is just a man who invents a time machine, in a sense, and he leaps into other people's lives in the past, but within his own lifetime. So if he was born in 1952, and it's he can leap into anybody between 1952 to like present time.
Oh,
yeah. So it's really cool, and he affects times. He affects events in the past for certain people, not major events, just different events in people's lives. And then some episodes will sprinkle in something where like, he inspired Buddy Holly or something, or he saved Marilyn Monroe, or something like that. It's really funny. It's a fun show to watch. And I always reference it all the time in the show. Benjamin knows it, but
well, the cool thing about that is when you think about it as a pretzel, did this always happen? Like, I don't know how to explain what I'm saying. So like, if you going back in time, like let's say he really did affect Marilyn Monroe, so she became the person that she came. So somehow he had always been back in time to do that for her
there
to
you
be
go.
how she is too. So
Nice.
so it was already planned for him to go back in time and be the inspiration that she met or something to become the Marilyn Monroe that we know.
Go. Yeah.
So it was always just like that loop is just constant. Like it's weird to think about it that way too. It's like, if he didn't go back in time, would we have Marilyn Monroe? Like if she hadn't met him to inspire her to keep, you know what I mean? Like
exactly,
it's like, if we hadn't gone back in time, would we have her now? And so it's just so many things to think about with time. Just so and I'm like, does that loop keep going?
Right, like because the further reaches.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to kind of cap that with saying like, yeah, the further reaches of the timeline, if you're thinking of it that way, like that already exists too. Like if you're going to talk about the past and whatever changed because of him time traveling, well then, like you said, like him coming back, that like was already there as well, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Do y'all watch The Flash on the CW?
The Flash?
Do anybody watch The Flash?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So
I haven't, no.
The first season was so cool with how they did the time travel because it was like, it was the same thing, like a descendant of Barry Allen as the Flash. Yeah. A descendant of his friend is someone who was going to go back in time and kill his parents. And so it's like, so what the guy did was he ended up, well, I don't want to ruin it for you in case you want
No, go ahead.
He ended up murdering himself in the present, so his future offspring couldn't be born to go back and kill Barry's parents. And it was just like this weird.
Dang.
It was just crazy.
You know what I'd do? I'd buy Bitcoin if I went to the past.
100%.
Yeah, like what would we do if we would go back?
Why stop there? Google, you'd buy like Google stock on the ground floor. Yeah, Amazon, all that stuff.
I remember when Apple was $9. They had just come out with the translucent iMacs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was $9, and now it's like $350, and it split like 5 times already. It's so weird.
That's crazy. Oh, what a time.
But I know. Way back in the day.
If only I had that foresight back then.
I know. I was more concerned about, stupid parties and drinking and shit like that.
Me too. Yeah. I look at the kids nowadays, and not even kids, but like, I guess it's the teenagers and stuff like that. They're doing so much. I mean, a part of me is like really proud of them for that. And a part of me is a little sad because I feel like they have to be so caught up in these world events. They don't get to really be the teens, especially the teens who've had to deal with these mass shootings in their schools. Like, it was just something, I didn't even think about that type of thing happening when I was in elementary. Like, the thought of somebody coming into the school when I was a kid, I never, ever thought about it. And now, like, these kids go to school every day, and they're probably always wondering, like, is somebody in my school? And that was never even, it's just crazy.
Back then it was like, back then it was just Columbine. Columbine happened, and people were like, wow, okay, once it was something that didn't happen at all.
Well, I just remember being in a state of shit because I remember when that happened. I was just like, here, I'll give away my age a little bit. Well, I don't, whatever. Skip the noise listeners know I'm 42. So I was just like a year out of high school, or maybe two. Yeah, I think like maybe one or 2 years out of high school because it was like 99, right, when Columbine happened. Yeah, and so I remember just being in a state of shock while that was on the news, like, whoa, that's a thing that can happen.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like my kids, it's so sad. Like when they first, I mean, I'm kind of used to it now. My oldest is 12, but when she was the first one, like coming up through school and stuff. And I remember her telling me about like the bad guy drill and all these things they do. I'm like, God, like it broke my heart. Cause I'm like, that's like part of their reality now. I mean, we had fire drills and we had whatever, but yeah, fire. Yeah. But that's just doesn't have the same, sting to it that the bad guy drill, where they actually have to think in their head that there might be a guy And there's a possibility that that's true. That guy could come in with a automatic rifle and start gunning people down. Like that wasn't even a concept in my head when I was like in, let's say, fifth grade. You
felt safe in school. Like most, you might get into a fight with a classmate, or at my school, we had meet you at the gate. A little fist fight with somebody. We had this game on the way home if you walked to school, and that was it. You didn't think everybody was going to knife or shooting. Okay, you're going to be quiet now. Okay, got it. Yeah, this is sad. I feel
for us, it was meet you at the back of the gym. That kind of
back of the gym. Ours was there was a little, like a big open field, like in front. No, I'm sorry. It was the back of the school, like the property. And that was it. So it'd be like every Friday. So whoever had like beef during the week, then it would show up, like it would be, it'd be like a whole like fight card. There'd be like, well, this guy, whatever, Jimmy and him and blah, blah, blah. There'd be like a whole lineup, but it would go down Friday in this field. So like whoever had little altercations throughout the week, it was like, all right, cool. Well, Friday it's going down. And then there'd be like a group of people in a circle, like a fight club or something.
The teachers always try to get in on it. Like they try to be in the notes.
Yeah, they tried.
So we see our guidance counselors run into the gate and be like, break it up, break it up.
No, don't.
Just so memories. And I mean, not that was great, but it was just a lot less. Like, I mean, fist fighting, like nobody fist fights anymore. The first thing people want to do is grab a gun or a knife. I'm just like, okay, like we just can't go back in the day where we just kind of handle it. And then like the next day you were friends anyway. Like I'm actually good friends with two girls that I had a fight with and one in elementary school and one in high school. And we're friends on basic, you would never even know. It's just something so, girls being girls, something stupid, probably a boy or something, who knows. And it's funny, we laugh about it. I was like, do you remember when we got in a fight in fifth grade? Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the thing.
Well, I'm actually friends with a guy who used to bully me in elementary school. I'm his friend on Facebook now. Yeah, I'm like, hey, see his kids and stuff.
But yeah, nobody. That's the thing. I mean, obviously, the like at the extreme end of the example, yes, there's I guess a possibility for death. But my point is, like, yeah, elementary school fistfights, nobody's gonna die. Or at middle school, nobody's gonna die, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in 9 times out of 10, like you said, you'd resolve it. There'd be. And then a lot of times, I became friends with somebody too. I got like in 7th grade, had a fist fight in homeroom or whatever. And then 2 days later, we were like laughing around in the hallway. And the teacher I remember too, she looks and she has her eyes wide open. She's like, what's the point? She's like, look, now you're friends. Like, what the hell were you doing 2 days ago? But that's what it is. That's what it is. It's a natural part, because that's the thing. It's kind of a natural part of human interaction, you almost got to let them do that to where, and man, I just thought of this right now. You got to wonder if not letting that kind of stuff happen, because it's is leading to these pent up, where these worse and not to take this to a like darker place, but we were talking about school shootings, I guess, so it's not completely out of bounds, but like, these mass shootings, because we brought this up on the show a couple of shows ago, where it's like, what is up with these young men from probably most of the time the age from like 20 to 25, right? There's that transitional from being a child into an adulthood, in our culture doesn't have any kind of rite of passage, right? So there's no announcement that like, here you are, here's your adulthood. It's just kind of like, well, some of them kind of get it if they got good parents, some of them don't, and whatever, is just kind of figure it out. And
like, get a job.
So, but if you're not dealing with those acute altercations, right, like a fist fight, because that's what it is. It's in your face, like it's something you have to deal with. Somebody's throwing fists at you, and you either get hit and you're done, or you throw a swing back. But like if that never happens, it all builds up like in your head, and the gears start turning and it goes one direction. Maybe you're okay with it, maybe you resolve it, or maybe it festers, and then you feel like you never did anything, and then all of a sudden 21 you're able to procure a weapon that can kill a lot of people, and then now that's your outlet. So I don't know, I think sometimes, so in other words,
there's a correlation.
Yeah, I think I really do. And so my kids today, the 2 elementary, like I said, I got 4. So I got them at all different schools. I got 1 in middle school, 2 in elementary, 1 in daycare. So the 2 elementary kids got off the bus, and my daughter was like, yeah, there was a fight. Like somebody got, but I was almost like relieved, like, whoa, that still happens, like on the bus. Like, I was like, oh, really? Like, what happened? Did they get in trouble? You know, and I was asking them about it. I was almost shocked, like, oh, wow, that's first I've heard. Cause you know, I don't think my son's had like a fist fight or something. Like I've asked him before, like, oh, hey, did you have, you know, by the time I was in 5th grade, I had probably been in like 10 or 15, like, you know, little fights, and I never died. You know, nobody really got hurt that bad.
You know how to take an ass whooping. That's
you beat up, or you put the beating down, then,
or you put the beating down. Yeah. But then, you know, you also know what you realize. Cause I remember the handful of times that I actually came out on the better end of it. There was a sense of like, I kind of felt like, that wasn't really good. You know, I did what I had to do, but I don't feel good about, you know what I mean, hurting somebody. So there's that too. Like if you don't ever feel that part of the game, then you have this thing built up in your head that it's something else, when, you know, anybody that's had one of those can kind of tell you like, well, it's not really what, you know, it's not like what it is in the movies, you know?
Yeah. And I think I do really think that something with this generation, what do you call it? Why can't I think of my words tonight? The entitlement, because so much of, like, I don't know, me growing up, I didn't have a lot. Like we were like a regular middle class family, but there were some things I just couldn't do because we just didn't have enough money, and that's fine. And I accepted it. And now it just kind of seems like these kids are like, if things don't go my way, I'm taking it out on the world. Like maybe they just haven't learned how to deal with disappointment or things not going right, and then they lash out, or they never got to have this emotion. I also think with men, society still puts that silliness on there that men can't show emotion or things, or they're weak, or they're like a girl. And so men, it seems like, I mean, a lot of their mass shootings tend to be done by men. I'm trying to even think if there's ever been a girl one.
Yeah, damn near all. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and so I'm like, is that because whenever they were upset and they tried to talk about it, people told them you can't show emotion, and so they had to build up all this time. They had no, like, I feel like there's a lot of deepness to what you're saying, like not experiencing things not happening, like things not going your way, and not being able to express emotion, that builds up over time. So
we were talking about this on the show last time, about how men, it's all men, and then how there's no manual on how to be a man. You know, you just kind of grow into it, and hopefully you get to express yourself, and you don't take it out on people. You know, I blame it on the everyone gets a trophy mentality.
Yeah,
that's what I blame it on. You know, because you don't know how to deal with failure, or when things don't go your way. You know, it's not going to go your way.
Yeah, you know, they don't even have a concept of it.
No, 80% of the stuff you do in life is going to fail. That 20% is going to propel you forward. You know, if you excelled at 100% of everything, I don't know, you'd probably die or something. I don't know, but you're going to fail at a lot of things. 80% of whatever you do is going to fail. I don't know. And so maybe the younger generation doesn't know how to deal with that. But anyway, that's just the way it is, man.
When you look at the generational history, each generation has projected onto the next generation something that they got from the generation that raised them. So I think what I was reading is the reason why baby boomers or Gen Xers have kind of raised their kids to the fact that you're a winner and all that, is because they had it so hard from the generation that raised them. And they're like, I'm not going to raise my kids that way. I'm going to make my kids like never feel bad about loss. And it's so interesting. Like that's a whole nother thing. That and personality types are something I could talk about forever. Personality types, but just like the spiral of like how they were raised by their parents led them to raise their kids into this entitlement world, where parents are calling, they try to say millennials, parents are calling jobs for the kids instead of like, my son can't come to work today because I'm like, oh my God.
That happens.
Yeah, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, it does happen. I know for a fact. And whenever it does, I can't even, like, my mind can't even process that that's real. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, I guess just because of how my parents were. Like, my mom, I remember I got accused of writing graffiti on a restroom. And I legit, and like, of all the things, I did do a lot of bad things, but that particular one I didn't do. So whatever it was, my mom had a gut feeling. So I got a call, obviously, from the teacher or whoever called. And that was the only time where she like stood up for me. I don't mean she didn't stand up for me. What I mean is, like, every other time I got in trouble, I guess this is the bigger point. It was like, what the hell did you do? Like, why am I getting a call at home? Like, what, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't like, my baby didn't do that. My baby, he would never know. Like, every single time I got a like, you better call the teacher. Like, she'd make me call the teacher back and whatever. Or like,
apologize.
One time she made me write the teacher a letter talking about how, like, all these things she made me do.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, because of that, like, I tended to respect the fact that I was in a position where, you know, they were calling the shots, and, you know, I just had to be okay with that. And, you know, yeah, that doesn't happen. Everybody's so defensive, and no, my baby didn't do that. You're trying to, but, you know, it's just like, nobody's made out of glass. Like, you're not gonna, yeah, I think that's the problem. It's just like, just thinking that, like, you know, everybody's these
fragile,
you know, the fine china, the fragile, the fine china in the cabinet.
And then they do become fragile later because you didn't let them break and heal late when they were younger. And I mean,
you got to let them break and heal. Yeah.
I'm not a big Trump fan. I'm sure that's clear. But if you watch the documentaries that were kind of done before, like, you know, he became president, and he's just an example I'm thinking of. I'm sure there's tons where the family was able to bail them out of trouble a lot. I think, like, that also has a lot to do with your personality when you become adult. If you have, you know, because it's just like, you never got in trouble because you're always, even if you did do something bad, you still kind of got out of it. You were always able to cover your behind or whatever, or your parents could pay money to bail you out and make it okay. So I think that also has effect too. It kind of allows you to be like, well, I can do whatever I want because I can get away with it, even if I know it's bad, you know?
Oof, yeah. Hey, change the subject a little bit. I was looking through your website right here. You went to Comic Palooza. Are you going to go this year?
Yeah, so I was really bummed about last year. I pretty much have gone every year, except obviously last year. It is on my plans to try to go. I'm gonna go for press passes again. I would love to go because I didn't have pandemic last year either. I miss my comics.
Yeah, do you go as cosplay? Do you go dressed as anything or?
Sometimes. So I went as Nick Fury one year. This is somewhere on that blog. And then I went as Supergirl. I went as Storm. And then sometimes going cosplay, I get really annoyed. And I'm not making I'm just putting things together. Like for the Storm one, I wore a black zipper and black jeans. Like I'm not sewing or putting it together. Like real cosplayers. But sometimes it gets annoying because I'm also there as press. So I'm like, I got this camera, this bag, this blah, and I had this Nick Fury costume on, so I had the like badge and this like the eye patch and this huge leather coat.
Wow, just going all in.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, okay, I have to go home and change. So I wore like Nick Fury like the beginning half of the first day of Comic Palooza, and I was like, I'm done. Then the next day I'll just usually wear my superhero shirts. Like Captain America shirts or Flash.
There you go. Just kind of
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we're done. We'll do one day.
I think the last year that I went, there was a lot of Negans, male and female.
There was a lot of white.
Negans from The Walking Dead. Negan with the bat. Yeah.
I don't watch zombie things because the one thing I think if zombies freak me out, like vampires and stuff, no. But I'm like, zombies can happen. And I don't know what it is about zombies. It freaks me out. But I know I know The Walking Dead is huge but yeah, every year there's like something that's really big. Like one year there was so many Spider-Man. Like I was like, these men are very confident. Like there was the Spider-Man, like one scene,
no kidding, right?
There were so many Spider-Man. I was like, wow.
Fat Spider-Man.
Yeah, you're not.
I saw a lot of different shaped Spider-Man. We'll say that.
Spider-Man is not. You're not hiding anything.
Yeah, there's no room for flaws with this Spider-Man.
That's hilarious. Well, I'm going to go this year. I think they moved it to July. I want to say, or
back up to July. Yeah, I think they're trying to wait for more people to get vaccinated, and hopefully that will help. Because I think they had originally brought it back. They changed it sometimes. Sometimes it's June. Sometimes it's Memorial Day weekend. I'll never forget the Memorial Day weekend it was of the Great Flood. Well, I call it the Great Flood. I forget what year, 2016 or whatever.
The Great Flood.
But that Sunday, I had just got home, and that night, whatever that storm was, people got stuck at Comic Palooza. At the convention, they couldn't leave because the Comic Palooza goes into the evening with the adult stuff at night. So people are there for movies or the burlesque show and stuff like that. And they got at midnight. They couldn't leave. There was water. They couldn't get out of the garages. They were stuck. And I was like, I had left earlier, and I got home. I was like, ooh.
I went to the burlesque show the night before downtown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I remember it was started to rain on my way home. I was like, is this the storm that's coming? And sure enough, the next day, I mean, it was terrible.
That was it.
That was it. See, Houston's always getting something crazy. I'm just like, I mean, I had, when I was up north, we had some things, but mostly snowstorms, but you know, everyone knows to do our snow. We just stay. But it wasn't until I come here, I've done with hurricanes, tropical storms, power outages, ice storms, winter storms, flooding.
That's
I'm like, I love Houston. I love it though.
Yeah, it is. I actually made that exact same comment a few episodes ago where, yeah, it feels like every 2 or 3 months there's it's 100-year whatever. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is the 100-year flood. Never happened. Okay, well, it happens every 2 months because you know there's some kind of disaster that's life changing.
It's not the 2-month flood. It's not 100.
2 months. Yeah, no, it's not. Every 2 weeks we have to buy, hunker down and buy like supplies enough to fill a bomb shelter. Canned goods and toilet paper and Clorox.
I think that the Maryland area floods pretty much every year with a tropical storm or a hurricane. Yeah, it's not, and they always say it's a 500-year flood. No, it's not. It's an annual flood.
That's kind of like, people need to reanalyze these stats and these 100 and 500 years.
No.
Anything off that bayou, man. Anything off of Ireland, Braeswood, all that. Like, come on. I think it's houses for sale over here. I'm like, nope.
No way.
No way. Yeah.
That
so
I used to live terrible.
I used to live in this apartment complex called Nob Hill, which is like its own zip code. Like there's like 7 different buildings. It's massive. It's right off of the hell is it? It's like Chimney Rock and Braeswood, I think.
It's like the Kowloon Wall City.
Yeah, it is. 100% it is. And so there's the bayou runs right behind it. The Braes, right? God, I should know, man. Yeah. I'm a lifetime Houston resident. I should know my bayous. But yeah, I think it's Braes Bayou. And so there's like a walking bridge that goes over the top of it. Mm-hmm. Well, when I lived, this was back in, this is probably early 2000s. I lived there for a couple of years or whatever. And I remember when one of these 100-year floods or whatever, air quotes, 2-week floods or whatever, it was so high, the water, that like it was up to the bridge. So like you could put your hand, like you could go over this walking bridge and put your hand down so if you're trying to visualize this, normally like there's a ditch, like the bayous, I would say the elevation on a typical, I'm trying to think. Yeah. For people listening that are not from Houston, they're probably like, what the hell are you even talking about? So these body of waters that run, it's called, they run through the city. They're little kind of stagnant little canals. Sources of water that are disgusting. Yeah. And we
are called the Bayou City.
We are right. That's so right. For us, it's just for us, it's just something that it is what it is. But yeah, other places I forget sometimes don't have these running all the way through them. So yeah, these, like Rick said, these canals that what would you say from like top to bottom as far as elevation goes, maybe like 20 feet, I guess.
Probably, yeah. Houston's probably zero, man. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So it's a what do you call the sea level type of city, right? But so these canals are like 20 feet deep. And then, so these walking bridge over this particular one was probably elevated another, maybe, I don't know, 10 feet over like kind of the level plane, like sea level, let's say. So this water is like up to the damn bridge. Like you could reach down and like scoop it with your hand. And then meanwhile, like everybody's car, like, you know, like hundreds of automobiles are just underwater, and people's apartments. So in all my years, I mean, I have a house now, and, you know, I got kids or whatever, we're out in the burbs, but like in my apartment days, I never got a first floor apartment, like ever. Just because I lived one place when I was living with my dad. There was, we lost, I forgot what storm that was.
So many.
Yeah, there's so many. Like I can't even keep track. They're all named. I don't know if it was Allison or whatever the hell, but the entire first floor of this apartment complex, and this was another like pretty big one. It was like a 3-story apartment complex. The first floor, we luckily lived on the second floor. The first floor completely, for months later, there was just carpet all over the street and stuff, because they literally had to rip and redo the entire first floor of this. I mean, so I'm talking about like probably 1,000 people, or I don't know, several hundred people that, you know, had to get displaced because of this thing. So yeah, water's no joke, man. It'll change your life in one way. It's either either our pipes are busting or you know, but anyway, so stay away from that. But yeah, I think we're getting to the point we've done. This is a great, man, Shazi, thank you so much again for coming on. Yeah, this is a guy. We will definitely do it again. I have no doubt. Yes,
Shazi, you have to come back.
And I want to have you guys on my show too. I actually haven't had any guys get Shazi's World Live.
What?
Yeah, because I was just going through. Oh no, wait, I'm lying. I had Clarence on there. We were talking about what happened on January 6th. I had Clarence on there once. But yeah, I want to do way more. It's just I was doing them on Sundays, and now I feel like I work every single Sunday. So I keep trying to figure out a good time. My retail schedule changes every week, so it's hard to like schedule an exact time to do it every week.
I feel you 100% on that one. I know the pain in trying to schedule just this show. We have to kind of jump through hoops, but you know,
we can catch you at Shazi's World, right?
Yep. You can find me there on Instagram. Yep, and then all my links, everything's linked there. Mm-hmm.
And your show is it on Instagram or?
I'm on that. Oh, let me put that in here. Yeah, Shazi's World Live. I just deleted all of my Instagram posts on that, so I'm going to rebrand the post. But I do have all the videos. All my videos so far are on Shazi's World on YouTube. YouTube.com Shazi's World. All the previous lives that I've done, they're all on there now. Except I have episode 15 to still get up there.
That is awesome. Yeah. All right, guys.
And I'll put it. Yeah, and I'll put both Instagrams for Shazi and Doc on in the show notes or in the show description so wherever you get it. So that'll be available to you. And and then Doc too, you can find him. His podcast is Lampbicious Podcast. He's on Instagram as well. And like I said, I'll print those out there. So when you get the show, you can look in there and make sure you follow them. Subscribe to their shows, all that good stuff. But we had a blast, you know, in the absence, unfortunately, the absence of Mexican Nostradamus, but he will be back. Like I said,
I just gotta
no, it's he's quite a character who's got a reputation for predicting the future. That's no joke. We didn't call him that. He earned the nickname in the development of the show. This wasn't something Skip the Noise started. He was just Ben, and then about, I don't know, 8 or 9 episodes in, he earned that nickname. So so it's a real thing. But anyway, Shazi, thank you again for coming on. This was a blast. We had a really good time talking to you. Doc as well. He had to go at the break, but we really appreciated him taking the time to be on the show as well. So we'll definitely do it again. But on that note, guys, we will see you next week, and we'll explain Ben will be back, I think, by then, and we'll have a little a moment to discuss what went on this week for the Skip the Noise crew. It was a rough week, but hey, we're strong. We pull together in tough times, as we always do. We've had to do a couple times since the show started, to be honest, and this is no different, more on the personal side, but once again, we appreciate everything you guys do for us, and keep listening, keep telling your friends about it, and we'll see you next week. Take care.